Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the session with Miriam just as much as I did. And now I am so happy to be here with Natalie and with Jelena. And especially with Natalie, there's a quite special connection between us because we actually co-founded this Women in Innovation initiative. So it gives me really great pleasure to welcome you here and to share with everybody.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so maybe Natalie, you could go ahead and just tell us a little bit about your background, your own innovation leadership journey. Go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you, Sandra, and it's lovely to be here and also to share this platform with Jelena as well. And so let me just give you a very quick potted history. I think in terms of leadership, my leadership journey started very young. Even at the age of 5, I was setting up businesses. I had my own library and I used to rent out books to friends on the streets. But I went through my education, and after I finished my A-levels in England, I decided I didn't actually know what I wanted to do, so I went off and traveled for 5 years and then came back really interested in politics and sustainability, and I actually worked in Parliament for a while in the UK. Then I moved into the business world and got very, very passionate about new technologies for markets of learning, and I headed up innovation in a couple of corporates. And then in around about 2006 time, I left the corporate world and set up my own business in London, an innovation consultancy working with companies on helping them not only with what to innovate, but how to innovate, skills, mindsets, the human side, what I call the human side of innovation. And then in that crash of 2009, had to lay people off and really sort of regroup and think about what to do next. And I moved to Asia and moved to Singapore and set up the business again. And there I have been since, I'm now living in Malaysia, but since then I've been growing a global brand around the 6 I's of innovation and my book, Yes, You Can Innovate. And so that's a very quick potted history, Sandra.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I've participated in one of your 6i workshops, and it was really, really helpful for me. Not just in my daily life as an innovation consultant to just kind of see, okay, how can you innovate? Like, what different mindsets can you have there? But also personally, honestly, just realizing that there are some people out there who are always looking for new stuff, new trends. They get excited about that. They want to be creative. They don't care that much about the execution part. So that's me. Hi. But also having others who are just constantly trying to improve things to make them better, and that is not criticism of you, but that is something to make the thing better and not to be personal about it. So that was a really great learning from me personally.
Great, that's fantastic.
So yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great. So Jelena, you're joining us here today from Hong Kong. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Right. I am talking to everyone. Hi, ladies from Hong Kong today. Well, my personal background is a little bit of a mix. My parents came from 2 different countries. I was born in the third country. We've been in an expatriate family since I was a baby. So I spent 3 years in every country growing up, and that somehow extended into my adult life that I've worked in different countries and all, pretty much every 3 years. So now I'm in Hong Kong. Work-wise, actually, I give it a little bit of a thought when I was given this question today, because I was thinking about what's my leadership, because I never really consider myself in a leadership position. The only thing that I have been doing my entire life, and which is what really propelled me forward, is the word how better. How do we do this better? So being a chubby teenager trying to figure out how I could look better in a very, naive and vain kind of way. That brought me to my journey in doing public health. And then I got my master's degrees in nutrition. I worked in Singapore government in health promotion. And I thought, no, this is not enough. How do I do it even better? Then I went into corporate, doing workplace health management, consultancy, creating programs. Then I thought, this is not good enough. How do we bring it more to people's lives? So I went into hospitality, working with spas to create lifestyle programs and things. Then I thought, okay, mixing peace, physical fitness, Then I became a Pilates instructor that specializes in women's health, pre and postnatal, menopause health. Then I thought, that's not enough. We need to change how people live. Then I also got another coaching certificate in behavior coaching. And also, I think my entire life works around creating programs. And the idea, like you said about yourself, is how do we do better? What's the latest thing out there? How can we change things? That brought me the recent programs the last couple of years. For example, I use Argentine Tango on Parkinson patients or patients recovering from heart surgeries and all. And I can guarantee if one day I could just show you, they can't dance, they can't walk, they come in wheelchairs, they'll be in class standing up for 90 minutes before they go home. And we've also revitalized traditional postpartum confinement programs using traditions from different countries and packaged them into a self-implemented program that you can easily do at home for ladies living in the Western world. So that's my little journey, my little background on, wanting to just keep propelling things forward and somehow bring the ladies around with me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm always fascinated like how multifaceted innovation is and like how you can go into like all these different areas, because like both of you have been so successful with this, but going in completely different directions with that, right? So that is just something that I think is really encouraging. And for the audience out there, it's really about like finding what you do best and like what you want to do. And innovation can go into all of these different directions there. So Jelena, let me just, continue right there with you. Do you have a specific like mindfulness practice that you do or something like where you personally benefit from it, since that is the topic that we are looking at here today together?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a very good sitting down, do nothing and meditate person. So movement and dance is my form of mindfulness, especially Argentine Tango. It's a world of its own. It's non-choreographed, so you really have to practice being present. So my morning routine includes Pilates exercises, breathing exercises, so that I could prepare my mind and body. I also have an old-fashioned planner. So where I go to my little reflection moment, reflecting on the day before and getting ready for the day. So that's usually my morning routine with some physical movement, some specific release and realign exercises before I get to my planner. And I do have my weekly dance time and some time with music and myself. Yeah, that's pretty much mine.
Sounds good. Yeah. Same thing for me. I'm not so much the sitting just down and like not doing anything person, unless I'm watching like, some show that is also very mindful, just entertain me, turn my mind off. That also works. But yeah, other than that, it's more about like, for me, it's about being with people, interacting with them and being in the moment with them. That it's really like gives me a lot of energy back. How about you, Natalie? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I actually really like sitting down or even lying down and being very, very quiet. I have a morning rhythm. I like to call it a rhythm rather than a routine, if you like. I always start the day with meditation. And I find that really helps me because I'm a head type. I live in my head, I live in the world of ideas and things, and I'm very driven and I have a huge amount of energy. So I find that just starting the day in a very calm space really helps me get in touch with my feelings and the sensations, because it's not just being up here, too heady. I also practice Qigong, which means really to be skillful at using energy, and Dao Yin. And I've been doing that for about 13 years. I had a really bad back and I kept getting a bad back and bad neck. And I actually discovered this, and it actually really helps both at the physical level as well as the emotional and the mental level as well. And it gives a great structure for flow to happen in your life, particularly when you have a lot of energy and you want to be able to direct it really well in leading and in managing and getting things done in the world with a bit more ease rather than like rushing through stuff. So they're my two main things, but exercise is very important to me. And actually through COVID, I have got quite fit, and I'm probably in terms of weight, I'm at the best weight that I've been for maybe 25 years. So that's a good thing. And yeah, eating well, of course. Eating well is very, very important too.
Yeah. Wow. I admire that you do all these things in the morning. So, a friend of mine, we've been doing yoga together, like all through the pandemic, just online, yoga with Adrienne. Some of you might know that. And we always meet up. And she was like, oh, we should do, a monthly challenge. And we're going to meet up in the morning before work. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And after 1 week, I was so exhausted. I was like, this is a horrible idea. I cannot do that at all. Because in the morning, like I wake up and have all these things on my mind and I need to get started and I just need to get them done now. And then I can be mindful in the evening and think about like, what did I do? How can I do better tomorrow, etc. But when I do that in the morning, I don't know how you do that. I just like everything keeps rushing and I can't calm down. So it's just not a thing for me.
Well, I think that's important though. I think it is about finding what works for you and finding a consistent rhythm. And for some people that it is more of an active thing, and maybe it's later at night, or it's just taking those mindful moments throughout the day to take a pause and breathe and remember you have breath running through your body. So I think that's good. I think it is about finding your own rhythm.
Absolutely.
And interestingly, I'm the other way around from Sandra. Like I would need my time to reset, to plan, to prep my head for the thing. But at night, that's when ideas keep running and I can't stop.
Yeah. So we're just different, right? And everybody needs to find what works for them. But let me ask you, Natalie. So we understand like it's important to do that for yourself, but why do you think mindfulness is important when we lead other people and when we lead them while innovating? Why would that matter?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I think one of the main things, or maybe one of the main benefits or outcomes, I suppose, of living a more mindful life is that you are more in touch with yourself in that sense. You have more empathy. You have self-empathy in a way. You understand your own interior self. What's going on, how you're feeling, what you're sensing. You get more in touch with your emotional landscape, the ups and the downs of it. So in doing that, you are able, I think, to be more present to other people about what's going on for them and in their lives and how you can interact and be more empathic with them in relationship. And I think from a leadership perspective, what is happening a lot in that mindful state, whether it is in a moment of meditation or when you're just walking down the road and you have that sense of wonder about life, or you feel connected to something that is like bigger than your mind. I think from an innovation perspective, that's one of the big things that has given my life. It's like this connectivity to a deeper creativity, a deeper imagination that is beyond mine. And I often feel I'm touching a wisdom that isn't mine in that sense. And so when from a creation perspective or bringing in the new into the world, that's a huge benefit in terms of from a leadership perspective as well, when that spills out into your work and into your relationships.
Perfect. Yeah. How about you, Jelena? How do you feel about that?
Well, Natalie has pretty much summed it up so well that it is where we're heading. But so I'm going to just give you a little bit of science and research, a few facts that we know by now and why it works, right? So neuroscience have helped us understand this mind-body connection because of the vagus nerve, the enteric nerves that its connection with our breathing and our diaphragm and all. So physiologically, any mindful practice that involves breathing actually increases the oxygen in the brain, hydration, reduces the flight and fight response. So it gives us a clearer mind and a healthier brain. It brings down your blood pressure, it brings down your blood sugar, which then reduces inflammation. That makes you healthier, right? It also is involved and it improves pelvic floor health. And this is a huge piece in women's health in terms of neural connection. And why our pelvic floor is always the first to suffer without people knowing, about most women realizing that it's a problem. Mentally, it gives you that space to be able to work. It increases attention, less stress, better working memory, and these are all research-based. Intellectually, and this is a big part that Natalie had already mentioned, that it helps increase attention and bring your mindset to the present. And that would help you gain insights. One of the things we've always said to do, or we recommend people do, is a little bit of journaling or stock taking, who you are, where you stand, where you want to go. Because the truth is that if you don't know where you want to go, it's really, you can't figure out how you're going to get there. We've always known that if you've ever worked with a leader or worked with someone who aren't very clear where they want to be or where they're heading or where they stand, it's not likely a leader that you feel very connected to. And again, research and studies have confirmed that people are just more attracted and committed by leaders who show good self-awareness and insight.
Yeah. I love that point, actually, Jelena, obviously around the journaling, because I do a lot of journaling as well, and I have since I was a little girl. I think I was about 8 or 9 when I started to journal. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of journals that I've dragged around the world. But that whole processing aspect that takes place through writing, through reflection of the self, but then also how that stimulates new ideas as well, because sometimes ideas just pop out and from your subconscious mind that maybe weren't even considering. And so it has that both those benefits, doesn't it, in terms of letting you ground but then opening you up. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, because we need to know where we are now and where we want to go, right? Without either one, how are you going to figure out what to do and where to go?
Yeah.
Also to keep us grounded, right? Because we don't always know where we're going. So we might know like the general direction, but then there's some, like, especially when we talk about more radical innovation, for example, there's so much uncertainty that if you are so uncertain about yourself and like everything that is happening around you already, then that's kind of hard to bear. But if you can say, okay, this is radical and I'm feeling my way through it, right? Because a lot of that process then is more intuitive than it is data-driven or fact-based or anything. But if I'm grounded as a person, then I can be more sure of that and I can move forward. And sometimes then mistakes happen, but then that doesn't completely throw me off. So I just, I get back up and I continue. Whereas somebody else might be, lying on the floor for a little bit longer there. So, yeah. So we talked a little bit about how people are really different from one another. And that's not just like an early bird, late owl kind of a situation. But we also have these different innovation mindsets. And Natalie, I mean, you have developed the 6 I's, you invented them. Could you tell us a little bit about that connection between my personal mindset and the mindfulness that I practice? Like, how would they connect and how would they be different from one another?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I've been reflecting on a lot, in preparing and thinking about today, because I think, we often talk about mindset, don't we? It's quite a common word that's sort of thrown around. But when we think of it through the lens of being innovative, I have 6 different mindsets, which I talk about in relationship to the stage of innovation. So for identifying opportunities, we need that mindset of curiosity. And I give it also the color blue. So we think of blue ocean or we think of blue sky. There's this expansiveness of mind that is needed for us to be able to see what is emerging. What trends are unfolding, how are things changing in our environment. And so we need that open-mindedness and that mindset of curiosity at that stage of innovation. And then for Ignite, for that stage where we are solutioning, when we're coming up with ideas, we need the mindset of creativity. And I give it the color red. Red is often associated with passion and energy and light and fire. It sparks. It's when we get solutions. And again, even if we're walking down the street and we get an idea and we think we know the answer, there's something that happens in the mind. And so that openness again to the mindset of creativity. Then we have the investigate stage of innovating, you know, when we're testing and prototyping, researching, validating, we're trying to work out, is the idea going to be useful, not just novel? And we have the mindset there of critical thinking, quite different from curiosity and creativity. You know, it's more observant, it has to stand back, it has to have clarity. So what Jelena was saying, you know, also about mindfulness, it gives you a clear mind, an ability to be able to see through things and have a sense of the possibility of what an idea could become. And I give that more of a sort of a turquoise, a teal type of blue. Then we have invest, and this is that stage of innovation where we really say, yes, I'm going to do it. Or no, maybe timing's not right. We have to convince people, we have to influence, and we need the mindset of courage to be courageous. And I think with mindfulness, often we're tapping into our own courage, our confidence, because we can see our assumptions, we can see how our self-doubt, we can see all those elements, and then we walk through it. You know, we make that step out into the unknown with that mindset of courage. And I give it the color green, green for go, or, you know, green light. And it's that whole aspect of decision making. And then for implement, the mindset I give there is commitment. Because in an implementation, that's the hard work. That's when we execute on an idea, we drive it out into the world, we make it happen. And there we have the mindset of commitment with resilience, agility, the ability to surf change, to move, to morph as things around us are changing. And the mindset with mindfulness of thinking about how we do that so that we can handle change. And we don't get thrown off point. We have that sense, that anchored sense in who we are. And I give that the color purple. Purple is historically the hardest color to make, and implementation is the hardest part of innovation. And then lastly, that last mindset that I talk about is improve with the mindset of being clever. That ability to look at something and see how it could be optimized, leveraged, to see a different way, to see a different perspective, whether it's the day-to-day stuff we're working on or bigger projects, but to have that clever mindset. And I give it the color orange. If you think of the fire, the glow of light around a fire, it's when we start to open again to possibility around our ideas. So they're the 6 mindsets that I talk about and how they interrelate with each of the stages of innovation. And we're all different, as you say. So some of us may have more of that mindset of curiosity. We're always looking for the new. You know, what's possible? Where's the next opportunity? Where's the next challenge? Other people might have more critical thinking, be more grounded, be able to really analyze and look at things, and so on. So we need this different harmony of mindsets really working together to make our ideas more impactful. And our mindful life enables that. It enables it, it helps it come out into the world in our relationships with each other.
Perfect. Wow. No, that makes a lot of sense. I love how you associate colors with it and kind of take it from there. Purple really got me laughing a little bit now, the hardest color to make. And I can totally relate to that. Execution is really the most difficult part of it all, to actually bring it to life. And it's something that people tend to forget about innovation, right? They think innovation is creativity. It's having an idea. It is that, but it's also going through with it and actually doing that. And I see that a lot with our clients, is that some of these implementers and improvers, they don't perceive themselves as innovators at all. They're like, oh, I'm a project manager. I get things done, right? I'm not one of these fuzzy innovation, creativity types. But no, you're not, but you're still part of this whole process. So that makes a lot of sense of like how these things are also related then to mindfulness practices. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So Jelena, there's so many different programs that you do, the Gentle Birth Project, the Tango Therapy for Parkinson's, like everything that you mentioned in the beginning, the real approach. And it seems like mindfulness is always a part of it. So could you just dive a little bit deeper into that and give us some more details about that?
Yes, of course. See, mindfulness is in a lot of my programs. It's always the starting component. And there's a physiological reason behind it. When we are in that mindful state, that is when your brain and the rest of your body are really aligned. And I've mentioned some of the physical benefits earlier on. And the truth is, when that's not aligned and when you're not able to breathe deeply in a way that your physical body is meant to or designed to do, that is actually when a lot of the physical pains and aches, inflammation, restriction of your joints. And since I assume we're all ladies here, but I know that we have a couple of gentlemen too.
Yes.
Painful sexual intercourse, pelvic floor health, incontinence, they all have, they're all related to how you breathe and whether or not you're able to get into that grounded state in terms of your body physically. So in a lot of the programs we do are really to provide people with different approaches and tips and environment and structure to help women or help the people that we're working with to get into that mindful state. So if you look at a lot of the health program now, mental wellness programs, physical health programs, breathing is always a component of it. So like in the REAL approach, REAL really stands for R, it's rest, E to eat right, eat whole, complete, A is for staying active, and L is for living fearlessly. So mindfulness is really a part of all of it. Like it's incorporated into every component in the programs that we do. In tango specifically, if anyone here dances Argentine tango, you will know that it's a non-choreographed dance. We don't go onto the dance floor with a set of fixed steps. It requires nonverbal communication between the partners. And I would tell you that my best dance was with someone that I don't even speak the same language with. I've never met him before. We've only had that one dance in our life. And it was the most beautiful, most present, quiet moment in life. And because of that, in class, our patients, our Parkinson patients are so focused and they're present in the tasks they were given, they forget that they can't walk. So they started moving, they started partnering with each other, doing dance moves, turning and walking backwards. It's something that Parkinson patients can't do, but because the fact that they were so present in that moment with the music and with where they are, they forget. And that's the power of mindfulness and presentness. In Gentle Birth Project, because we see a gap in women post-birth that you're trying to recover physiologically, but you have a newborn baby, and a lot of women needed to go back to work immediately, and a lot of women who had their first or second child while they were giving birth to third and fourth. So there was a lot going on, and there is not a moment for the mother to be mindful, and this has an impact in her long-term health, especially when it goes to her later years in the 40s and 50s. We see a lot of women at that stage with injury coming from birth or things that could have been healed post-birth. And that's why we created a program, the Gentle Birth Project, to support women in the latest term of their pregnancy and the beginning of their postpartum journey. So then what I'm sharing is that physiology is such an important part of who we need to be, and that needs to be incorporated into our lives, because we bring the same body to home and to office, in front of your computer and to your partner. You can't say that I'm all exhausted and tired in life, but I can perform and create and innovate at work as soon as I move from my dining table to my work desk. It doesn't happen that way. So what we hope is to encourage everybody to really look at yourself as a whole and innovatively using the 6I approach to find and to investigate what works best for you.
Great. These are such important things. And I do believe that also having a woman who's healthy after birth, right, really benefits the baby, the children, the husband, or the wife, whatever your family construction is. I mean, it just does well for everybody. So Thank you for doing that. That's really impressive and really great. But yeah, I used to dance for years, and I can totally like identify with what you were just saying. Like there's not, you don't necessarily need to speak. You don't need to speak the same language. You interact so much on a nonverbal basis, and you're so much in the moment if it goes right, that you just kind of forget everybody or everything around you. So yeah, it's a great experience. Perfect. Okay. So, one last question to you guys before we open it up to your questions from the audience. So, if you already have some questions, you can start thinking about them now and you can start putting them in the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to ask a last question. Are there any strategies or is there any advice that you would like to give to help women who are in leadership positions, who innovate, like just from a state of mindfulness? Maybe Jelena, if you could start.
Okay. You know what? I would actually encourage everyone, if you're familiar with Natalie's six-eyed approach, that's the perfect way to help you find what practice works for you, right? And I'm pretty sure both of us would like to encourage everyone here to find your own mindfulness practice, find what works for you. So you can start investigating. Now you're ignited, you have the idea that you're going to go ahead and find yourself a mindful practice, right? You can experiment on a few different things. So that's number one. Number two, I think another thing we talked about this earlier in our conversation, it's about being grounded. Always know where you stand. And that's a critical point, because if we're not grounded, there's no way we can bring others with us, right? So not just having that your own practice, stay grounded, and then build your tribe, build your network, build your close networks, so you can support each other along the way. And that's, I think, that was one of the most beautiful things about being a woman.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the community aspect is so important as well, to have somebody to talk to interact with. Often we think, oh, it's just me who's trying to do that, or it's just me who thinks that, this is important. But most of the time it's not. And most of the time when we work together, then we can be stronger. And that was also like one of the core motivations for Natalie and I when we founded this Women in Innovation initiative, is to say we want to build this community and we want to interact with each other and push and empower each other, inspire each other. So I hope we're able to do that. So how about you, Natalie? What kinds of tips would you give to somebody?
Yeah, I think, just building on what Jelena's saying, I think finding and building your own practice, your own mindfulness practice that works for you, experiment with different things, and then actually to be consistent with it. I think sometimes we do things and then we think, oh no, and then weeks go by and we wonder why we're feeling like we're feeling. I think you have to actually have that mindset of commitment and to really stick with something even when you don't feel like it. And I think, it's important because structure enables flow in our life, and we are energetic beings. We're dealing with our own energy all the time and other people's energy. So to become more skillful with that, we need to create a structure that works for us and work with our own, body energy, our emotional energy, our mental energy. So I would say absolutely that is the number one thing. And then within that, to check in with yourself throughout the day. How am I feeling? Oh, my body's here. Oh, what sensations are going on? Because we go up into the head and we are operating from here all the time. And so to actually, really be grounded in ourselves and aware of that, I think is important. I think another thing is to really get to know yourself, to really sort of dig deep into who you are, what drives you, what motivates you, what really, I call it, follow your pings of joy. What are the pings of joy that are calling you, and to actually go forward to them, because there's something that's wonderful and beautiful in that is actually a real connection to you that's saying, yeah, here is the path. This is what we're meant to be doing here on this earth right now. And it might change down the road, of course it will, but to follow those intuitive pings of joy, I think is another area. And I think lastly, to do, the center of the 6 eyes model is purpose, which is, I think, the most important thing in life and in the world right now, to really examine our own purpose. are the innovations that we're creating really affecting positively people and planet? You know, are we looking at the bigger picture of what our lives are, what our work is, what we're creating with our skill sets, and to align ourselves to that deeper sense of this is who I am and this is what I'm about. And therefore I then step out into that with courage, you know, despite the difficulties that are going to be around, to enable that to happen. So I would say they're the sort of some of the top tips that I would give, that I purposefully live in my own life on a daily basis, because I feel without them, I'm ungrounded. I'm just floating around from idea to idea without that sense of, you know, direction and purposeful living. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Just to give you a little tiny nudge again, dear audience, if you do have any questions that you want to ask, now would be the time to put them in the chat. So yeah, Natalie, I can really relate to what you were saying. It's that purpose is really something that is so important. So before I did this job, I did another job, and basically it didn't have the purpose that this current job has. And so at a certain point, I was all in my head, and I was not taking very good care of myself. I was practicing mindfulness, you know, once a month or something. And then it really hurt. So I rather not, you know, I was all in my head, just shutting down everything else. And we all know where that ends. That ends in burnout. It's not fun. And so that's what happened. And then while I was like recovering, I was like, what did I do? Why did I do that? What can I do better? How can that never happen again? And it's really then when I was like, these pings of joy for me was always like sustainability. It was always like creating something bigger than just me, taking care of the people around me, taking care of the planet around me, etc. So that is why, fortunately, this position was created for me here at Hype. And ever since then, you know, everything has been so much better. And so that is something that I would also like to encourage you, that it's not always the career ladder, the traditional one, that is the right one, right? You don't always have to go up. You can go around, or you can go somewhere different, or you can step down a little bit if that feels better and if that aligns more with your purpose. It is really something that I did, and it was really the best decision of my life. So let's see. There are some questions here.
Okay.
One of them is, how can you overcome the fear to fail? I have the feeling that I want to achieve so much, but I'm afraid to fuck it up sometimes. Sorry for the bad language. I think mindfulness could help a lot. Am I right? Maybe, Jolina, you want to get started on the answer to that.
Okay. There are two parts to my answer. And number one, failure is a part of it. It is part of us trying something new, and failure is just before we got better. So don't see it as a hindrance, and don't be afraid of it simply because you can't be without it. It will happen, right? The thing about it is that, okay, fail just means that it's not yet there. We just do it again, and or take a twist and turn. And a lot of times failure is what spikes innovation, because you're looking for new and better ways of doing it. So that's number one. And the second part of my answer is that that fear actually creates physical responses in your body. And all your mindfulness practices, physical practices, breathing practices, is what will help you to calm that down and to help you reflect on whether if this fear is valid or if it's not, right? That gives you a space to examine how you feel inside. Are you filtering it through past experiences? Or are you, is there a genuine challenge, right? So it's your mindful practice, your journaling, your breathing, calm the physiological conditions or responses down before you can re-look at it and re-examine it from different angles. That I think it definitely will help you.
Absolutely. Is there anything you want to add to that, Natalie?
Yeah, a couple of things as well. I think that you could ask yourself, what do I need to be less fearful? What is it that would help me be less fearful? And in a way to sort of accept the fear, I think sometimes we have to embrace that which we may deem negative in our life, and that is part of mindfulness, actually, is to understand that emotions are sort of passing through us. They're not us in that sense. They're part of us that we're experiencing, both what we deem as good and what we deem as bad. And actually it's the non-judgment of what we learn in mindfulness that really helps us to really say, I'm feeling afraid right now, or this there is fear. And then to sort of embrace it a little bit, say, okay, I can hear you. You've got something to tell me. What is it? So I think there's that aspect of embracing that and being able to have a conversation with it to see, well, what is it that you really need? And then I think from a process perspective, when I think about the 6 I's, I really build the failure aspect, if you like, into the investigate stage of ideas. I think if we're aware that when we're on journeys of trying to make new ideas happen, that there's actually a stage where a lot of failure is going to actually take place, then we may feel less fearful, because we think, right, yeah, this is the stage of experimentation. This is the stage of prototyping or testing something out. Have a go. You don't necessarily have to have a massive shift. It could just be small things that you're trying out. But if you really have that mindset of critical thinking in the investigate stage, before you move then into courage, to say, right, okay, I've done this, I've tried all these things out, and now let's shift mindset into courage, and let's move into that space of decision making to do something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And remember, everybody is afraid of failing, right? It is not something that is just happening to you in an anxiety attack in the middle of the night. It's something that all of us go through. And I think it's called the CV of fuck ups or something that you can Google. Like what it takes to build somebody really successful is there's like this whole pile of things that didn't work out before. So it really, really happens to all of us. Well, thank you so much for that question. Thank you so much, Jelena and Natalie, for joining us here today. I really, really appreciate that.